Hi all, we are doing platform engineering masterclass sessions. So this is our third session. So in first session we have done our kickoff, uh, we have seen like what exactly we are going to do in this complete course, and we have seen environment bootstrap in the second session. Like we have already done the setup of our Kubernetes cluster with kind, and also I want you guys to install all the prerequisites which I have already listed in the second session. So now we'll talk about cloud and cost guardrails. So why exactly this is important? So we have our local environment up and running, but in later time in this course, when we go to the cross plane, right, definitely we will be going to the cross plane. So whenever we are talking about cross plane, right, so in cross plane we are going to provision real cloud resources, right? This is very important thing, right? So we'll be launching the real cloud resources, and also resources will be anything, like it might be IAM roles, S3 buckets, or RDS databases. We'll see like what exactly we are going to do in crossplane. So and if we don't set these guardrails now, then there will be a problem. Why? Okay, so we'll talk about a real-time issue. What happens if you don't have guardrails? What exactly the guardrails, like why we are doing this? So for example, or I would take a real scenario of a student who was learning crossplane. Okay, so who is practicing the crossplane, and he's already in the real world, who is working in the real organization. Okay, so they have written a composition where it provisions RDS instances. Okay, so you know what is RDS instances, right? So that is a database thing. Okay, so during testing, what happened is they go on and they create, then they delete. So this is what happens, like whatever we have, whenever we are doing the testings. So at one instance they have forgot to delete this. Okay, so that has been running for over a weekend, like it is 4 or 5 days, and the bill was around $500. Okay, so imagine the bill was $500. So it's very huge, very huge. So it is very important whenever you are practicing, whenever you are learning on the cloud, you have to keep your cost guardrails ready, right? That's why we are doing this before we touch cloud provisioning. Okay, so what we'll cover, first very important thing is we'll be talking and we'll be discussing about tagging, right? Tagging standards are very important. Then budget alerts, right? Then IAM hygiene. These three are very important. What exactly these are doing? So whenever I'm talking about tagging standards, every resource gets an owner, right? What do you mean by owner? Who created it, who owns it. This is very important whenever we are talking about tagging. And also every resource should have a project tagged, and every resource should have a life cycle tag, right? This is very important, and there are no exceptions while you are doing this. Tagging is very important in the real world, that we always miss, we always never do when you are practicing, or whenever you are working in your local machines, or whenever you are testing, whenever you are developing. Okay, so that is not a good thing to do. So tagging standards are very important. Then budget. So you will set alerts, right? For example, like I'll set an alert with 50%, then 80%, then 100%. Like you can keep this alerts going. Okay, means like you should have your monthly budget, and you need to make sure that how you are managing it. Like for example, you need to get an alert at 50%. For example, you are saying that you want to spend at $20, so then you need to make sure that, okay, so you keep these alerts at 50%, 80%, then 100%, so that you will never be surprised of what exactly is going on, or like what exactly or how exactly you are shooting up the budget. Then IAM hygiene. So IAM hygiene, we create a dedicated lab role for this. This is very important. Okay, so we'll created a dedicated lab role with very least privileges. This is standards what we use, what we do in the real world. Okay, so least privilege permissions. There is no wildcard admins for your daily work. Okay, so you always, when you go into the real world, you will always have least privileges. So we create a dedicated lab role with least privileges. Okay, so that is a very important aspect. Okay, so let me switch to my readme file so that I can show you. Okay, so this is not the one, this is the one. Okay, so cost guardrails, preventive controls that keep experimentation safe without blocking delivery. That is your budgets, alerts, tagging, account boundaries. While we use AWS for labs in this course, the principles apply identically to GCP, Azure, whatever it might be. Okay, so it is very important that you make sure, okay, so you apply everything with respect to the building and make sure you don't cross it. Grant only the minimum permissions required for course operations. In real enterprises, use AWS organizations SCPs or IAM permission boundaries to enforce limits centrally. Okay, and standardized tags make ownership, chargeback and cleanup automatable. That is very important. Okay, so tags in real world will help you a lot. Okay, so that will give you a feasibility to do your automation as well. Okay, so how you are going to do? Okay, so like we'll just see those things. Okay, so I've already given you complete readme file here. Okay, so in step 1, if you see, I've already given you the mandatory tagging standards, right? When you are building an IDP, your automation must enforce tags. That is for sure. Okay, so this is very important. If, for example, if an RDS database is created without an owner email tag, right, who that bill you will be sending to, that is very important, right? Like what I'm saying is, so in the real world, whatever you work, whenever you work, whatever you launch, so there will be a bill for that, right? There will be a bill for that. So who pays? Owner. So who is the owner of this? Which project? Right? So these are all the details that we need to detail so that we can give the cost center, in the sense like who are going to pay for this RDS instance. If you are tagging with an owner email and project, then that will be very easy. If you see here, you are tagging an owner, you are tagging a project. For example, owner is a team or a person. Most of the time it's a team. For example, if you are working in a platform engineering cloud services, then you will be having, or else like if you are working for cloud platform engineering services, it will have the team name. Then your project, internal developer platform course. Okay, we are giving it as course here, but generally like your project will be anything, right? Then you have a cost center. So engineering cost center, a life cycle, is it a temporary or a persistent? Okay, so are you creating for any temporary percent or temporary purpose? Are you going to keep it for 1 year or 2 years? Like what exactly you are planning, why you are launching this? Okay, so persistent means like you are saying that this will be existing. Okay, this is not a temporary one. You are not going to delete this, right? Then if you go into this step 2, like this is how you programmatically create an AWS budget. If you see here, so how you create your budget. Okay, so you should not skip this. Okay, so you have to keep your budgets and you need to make sure you get alerts, right? So if you see here, we are programmatically creating an AWS budget. So I have commented out the actual execution command, so you don't accidentally run it without modifying your account IDs. Okay, so you need to give your account ID here and email. Okay, but this is how you will prevent your bills shooting up. Okay, so if you see here, you have to make sure you give your account ID. Okay, so don't forget to change this account ID. Okay, so go and change this account ID and also change the email address. Okay, so wherever we have given the email. Okay, so just go and change the email address. So make sure you go and run this so that it will create your thresholds, and also you can change the required amounts or tags, whatever you wanted to do. Okay, so that is very important thing, right? So finally, let's jump to our step 4. Okay, so this one, okay, so this is something. Okay, so verify IAM baselines. Okay, so you just need to make sure, okay, so you are properly logging in with the least privileges but not with the admin credentials. Okay, so verify caller identity to ensure you are not using the root credentials. Never ever use root credentials, always use a user credential with a least privilege one. Okay, so let's jump into the step 4, which will generate our cloud guardrails artifact. Okay, so what exactly we are doing? Okay, so for example, if you see this, okay, so these are real world enterprise guardrails. Like untagged resources are auto terminated after 24 hours. Okay, so whenever you see, okay, so whenever there are no tagging, okay, so this is very important. Mandatory tags. If you are not tagging, your resources will be automatically terminated in 24 hours. No persistent IAM users, everything uses SSO. Okay, so we are not going to use any persistent IAM users. So we are completely going with SS. All developer access is via SSO with temporary STS tokens. So crossplane will use IAM roles for service accounts, IRSA, with strict permission boundaries. Okay, so we'll do that. Then budget rules, monthly budget. For example, if it is $50,000 per non-prod AWS account, make sure you have these alert thresholds. Okay, so these alert thresholds are very important, because even in our projects we'll see, like whenever there are any pipelines running, they keep pipelines running, there will be pods created, there will be PVCs gets created, that is getting charged, those will be getting charged, and most of the time when you are not having these guardrails, that budget, like it will shoot up. Okay, so we always make sure we automate everything. Like after 24 hours, if you are doing it in testing or development, we remove all the resources whatever we have created through automation. Okay, so that is always good, and we make sure that happens in our organization, in our project as well. Okay, so that is very important. Okay, and also clean up. All ephemeral environments are destroyed on Friday at 6 p.m. Right, if you see here, automated Lambda scripts destroy all resources tagged with environment as ephemeral. If the environment is ephemeral, then we are going to delete everything on Friday 6 p.m. Okay, so these are the most real world things, okay, so which happens in the every organization. Okay, so good. So now you know, and you have your budget alerts ready, and you have a tagging policy and a least privilege IAM setup. Okay, so these aren't just course requirements, this is how professional platform teams operate. Okay, so you have to make sure these are all ready. Okay, so don't worry, whenever we are going into the AWS, I'll show you this as well, but I want you guys to make sure you do this, because you already know DevOps, you already an expert in the DevOps, you already know AWS or whatever cloud you're working in, so you have to make sure you have all these ready. Okay, so this is it for this cloud cost guardrails course or the session. In the next session, we'll talk about branching strategy, which is very crucial, which is very important, right? So with that, our orientation, like what exactly we are going to do, what you need to have. Okay, so everything will be ready. Then we'll go into the Kubernetes primitives. Then we'll recap everything with respect to the Kubernetes. Everything in the sense whatever it is required for the platform engineers. Thanks for watching this video and have a great day. Bye.